Standing in my new apartment, everything seemed to finally align after 6 years of hard work. I, Julie, 29, could now proudly say I owned my home. I remember the day I was promoted 2 years ago like it was yesterday. My boss called me into his office and I thought I might be in trouble, but instead, he offered me a new contract with a substantial salary increase. From that moment, I lived frugally, refraining from any extravagances and saving every penny. But it wasn't solely my savings that made this dream a reality. A year ago, my grandmother passed away and left me $150,000 in her will. This, combined with my savings, allowed me to stop dreaming and start searching for a home. When I discovered this two-bedroom apartment, it felt just right, not too big, not too small. The best part? No mortgage. The realtor was shocked when I opted to pay in full, and the satisfaction when I signed the papers was beyond words. After receiving the keys, I shared countless photos on social media, and the flood of congratulations from friends was overwhelming. Julie, living the dream. When's the housewarming? It felt incredible to have so many well-wishers genuinely happy for me. However, my excitement was dampened when my phone rang. Seeing Dad on the screen brought back memories I struggled to forget. My mother passed away from cancer when I was just 9, fracturing our family. Shortly after, my dad remarried Sharon, who never tolerated me much, especially after they had my half-sister. Following Sharon's arrival, new rules exited exclusively for me. While my half-sister received all the attention and gifts, the house no longer felt like home, like I had become invisible. Thankfully, Grandma Margaret was my refuge, always welcoming me with open arms at her home just a bike ride away. While visiting Grandma, my cousins Jack, Emma, and Tommy always made me feel included, unlike my home life, where my half-sister Amy turned hostile. She sabotaged my belongings and spread rumors about me at school, yet I was always blamed. The day I received my college acceptance was the happiest, not just for the scholarship but for the chance to escape. College, supported by Grandma, was liberating. Calls with Dad were rare and curt, as he was preoccupied with my half-sister. After graduation, I returned to my home state for a job at Thompson and Mills. Initially, I planned to stay with Dad and Sharon until I found a place, but Sharon dismissed the idea, saying they had given my room to Amy. Dad stayed silent, offering no support. Grandma welcomed me warmly, and I stayed with her while starting my new job. After several months, I managed to save enough to rent my own small apartment. It wasn't much, but it was mine. A year ago, Grandma suddenly passed away from a stroke during her sleep. She left her house to my cousins, which made sense as they lived closer and always helped her. To me, she left $150,000, savings she had accumulated over her life. In her will, she wrote for the granddaughter who reminds me so much of her mother. The past year has been quiet. Dad and his perfect family have barely interacted with me, not even inviting me for Christmas. I spent it with Aunt Sarah and my cousins instead, and it turned out to be the best Christmas in years. That Saturday, I drove to my father's house, a knot tightening in my stomach as I neared their neighborhood. I checked my watch, 11:57. Still early, which was better than giving Sharon another reason to complain. I rang the doorbell, counting seconds until the door opened. Dad's expression was unreadable. "Come in," he said, stepping aside without a greeting. They all awaited me in the living room. Sharon was perched on her favorite armchair, akin to a queen, while Amy was spread out on the couch, absorbed in her phone. Sharon gave a brief nod of acknowledgement, whereas Amy didn't even glance up. "Sit down," Dad instructed, pointing to a solitary chair. The silence felt dense and heavy, like an impending interrogation. Dad cleared his throat awkwardly before announcing, "Amy has graduated high school and enrolled in the local college." I nodded, unsure of how to react, as I hadn't been invited to her ceremony. "That's nice," I cautiously replied, noticing they awaited some response. "She needs somewhere to live," Dad continued, avoiding eye contact, "somewhere close to campus." Sharon nodded like a dashboard bobblehead, and Dad murmured, Your apartment would be perfect due to its proximity to the college. I'm not looking for a roommate, I enunciated slowly, trying to comprehend the situation. Dad met my eyes, shaking his head. You've misunderstood, Julie. We're not asking for Amy to live with you. We're asking you to give her your apartment. I involuntarily laughed, a sharp sound that quickly faded upon seeing their serious faces. Give her my apartment? I repeated, sure I misheard. As in handing over my home. The one I bought and saved for years? Yes, Dad affirmed, simplifying it as if to a child. Amy needs it more than you do. I sat there, startled, as if in an alternate reality. My apartment, the one purchased with my savings and Grandma's inheritance, they wanted me to gift it away? Amy, who refused to acknowledge me even now. She deserves it more than you, Sharon insisted. Her voice coated in the condescension she'd used on me since childhood. What have you done to deserve such a nice place? All alone in a 2-bedroom apartment while my Amy considers student housing? In an instant, I was on my feet, my chair nearly toppling. Are you all insane? My voice sounded steady and firm. I'm not giving up my apartment. Not now, not ever. I bought it with my own money. Dad's expression darkened. Your own money? Your grandma left you $150,000. That isn't your own. Something broke within me. All the years of silence, enduring their disdain, dissipated. I retorted, my grandma, you mean my mother's mother? The woman who cared when you were preoccupied with your new family? That grandmother? The one not related to Amy. That's when Amy finally glanced up. Detached from her phone, her expression blank. As Julie watched Amy's face contort in that familiar, exaggerated way before her fake tears, Amy accused her. You're an awful sister. The wailing came right on cue. You've never cared for me, Julie. You've always been mean, added Amy. Their father's voice was stern and cold. I'm very disappointed, Julie. This isn't how we taught you. The words burst out of Julie. You didn't raise me at all. You withdrew the moment Mom passed and Sharon moved in. Don't you lecture me about upbringing. Almost bursting with anger and hurt, she snatched her purse and stormed towards the door, her body trembling with emotion. She could hear Amy's dramatic sobbing, Sharon's comforting whispers, and her dad calling her name behind her, but she didn't stop. She couldn't get away fast enough. Julie thought the confrontation would be the final straw. But her phone rang the next morning. It was her dad again. Julie, listen to me. He began as soon as she picked up. You're the elder sister. It's your responsibility to help Amy. That's what family does. Julie nearly chuckled bitterly. Family? Now you want to discuss family? Where was this family spirit when Sharon booted me out of my room? When Amy was making my life miserable? When I wasn't even invited to Christmas? Her father insisted it was different, that she was being unreasonable. You're insane. Julie cut him off bluntly. Absolutely insane if you think I'll give up my apartment for someone who's always tried to make life hard for me. Don't call me about this again. She ended the call, but it wasn't over. Sharon's messages lit up her phone moments later, filled with accusations of jealousy and selfishness, claiming, You're just like your mother. After all we've done for you. Strangely calm, Julie ignored further calls from her father, knowing all he would do was demand she relinquish her home again, guilt-tripping her about family obligations. A week passed since their argument, and she held her housewarming party. Her apartment buzzed with genuine laughter, filled with coworkers, old college friends, and cousins. It was like a healing ritual erasing the negativity of the past week. From the kitchen, Emma's voice called, We're out of ice, Julie. She was headed towards the freezer when her cousin Jack, usually the joker, stopped her. I need to show you something, he said gravely, leading her down the hall. Sitting uneasily on the edge of her new ottoman, Jack handed her his phone. I was at Lorenzo's last night, he explained quietly. Look who I saw at a back booth. As she swiped through the photos, Julie's heart sank. There was Sharon, her stepmother, cozily seated with an unfamiliar man, his arm around her. The photos captured intimate moments, them kissing, him feeding her dessert, their fingers entwined, all pointing to a relationship clearly beyond friendly. Unable to process initially, Julie whispered, "Send these to me, please." As the party concluded, and everyone left, Julie sat alone, stunned at the photos. Who was this man? It took no time to discover him. Unsubtle as it seemed, Sharon had him on her Facebook friends list. Robert Mitchell. A glimpse at his profile made Julie's world pivot. He was a longtime employee at Riverside Insurance, the same firm where Sharon worked long before her marriage to Julie's father. Scrolling back through Robert's pictures, she saw 20 years of gatherings, picnics, office parties, holiday events, and there was Sharon, sometimes just in the background, often partly obscured, still unmistakable. One image from 15 years ago stopped her. A woman in a red dress, her face turned away, sitting alongside Robert on a park bench, the caption reading, "On a serene Sunday afternoon, I found myself reflecting on Sharon's elegant presence, her hair cascading gracefully as she wore her cherished red dress." It was 3 years into her marriage to my father. I opened a new tab on my computer, searching for recent images of Robert Mitchell. His face appeared on my screen, and a realization struck me with unexpected force. The eyes, the distinctive nose, the slight upward curve of his mouth even when he wasn't smiling, it all felt familiar. I quickly compared it to a recent photo of Amy on my phone, holding it up next to the screen, and the likeness was evident. How had I missed this? Amy bore no resemblance to my father, never had, but she was a veritable replica of Robert Mitchell. This revelation was a searing secret I carried for days, weighing heavily on me. Each glance at the photos made me feel ill, questioning 2 decades of lies with my father oblivious to it all. When his number appeared on my phone, I hesitated to answer, but an impulse made me pick up. "Julie," he said, his voice firm, the tone he used when assuming a paternal role. "We need to talk. Come home now." I thought of spilling everything, his wife's long-lasting affair, Amy's true parentage, but something told me to hold back. "I'll be there in 20 minutes, I replied. When I arrived, only he and Sharon were there in the living room. "Sit down, Julie," he commanded, and I obeyed, pretending to be the obliging daughter one last time. He didn't mince words. "Your actions have been disappointing," he declared, pacing by the fireplace. "This selfishness, this refusal to assist your sister must end." Sharon nodded in agreement, and my stomach churned at her audacity to push me into surrendering my apartment to her illicit daughter. "I've decided," he continued sternly. "Either you transfer your apartment to Amy, or you'll be disinherited. No money, no family assets." Sharon seemed triumphant, believing they had me trapped. I feigned shock and distress. "I need to think this over," I murmured, watching Sharon's satisfaction grow. "Good girl," Father said, softening slightly. "Take time and reflect on what truly matters." "Could I use the bathroom first?" I asked, feigning a small, shaky voice. With a dismissive wave, he allowed me to leave, and I hurried upstairs. But my destination wasn't the bathroom. I slipped into Amy's room, which had once been mine. The room was a sea of pink, as perfect as Amy's privileged life. Her hairbrush lay on the vanity, full of long dark strands identical to Robert's. Hands trembling, I took a small plastic bag from my pocket and collected several hairs. Next, I moved quietly to my father's bedroom, where his comb lay expectantly on his dresser beside the wistful wedding photo. I gathered his hair into a second bag. That evening, I researched DNA testing facilities, focusing on those that provided legally binding paternity tests. The cost was steep, nearly $2,000 for expedited results, but it was a necessary expense. The following morning, I entered the facility with the carefully labeled bags. The technician guided me through the forms and process, assuring me the results would arrive in a few weeks. When the DNA test results came in a plain white envelope, my hands shook as I opened it. The conclusion was clear. The alleged father is excluded as the biological father of the tested child, with a 0% probability of paternity. Just then, my phone rang, with Sharon's name glowing on the screen. "We're tired of waiting," she snapped, forgoing any greeting. Your father and I need your decision on the apartment soon, or say goodbye to your inheritance. I kept my tone steady and calm. I've been thinking over everything. I'll come over for dinner this Saturday, and we can talk then. That Saturday evening, DNA results safely in my purse, I drove to their house once more. My anticipation was palpable, distinct from previous anxiety. In the living room, they waited, exuding a predator-like confidence, certain they had me cornered. Sharon looked smug. Amy reclined leisurely, as if this were her due. Amy smirked as she examined her manicure on the couch. Meanwhile, Dad stood by the fireplace, attempting to appear stern, though his satisfaction was nearly tangible. Finally, Amy drawled, "It's taken you long enough to make the right choice." Dad stepped towards me, placing a hand on my shoulder. "I'm happy you've reconsidered, Julie. This is what family is all about. Supporting each other." I shrugged his hand off. "I haven't changed my mind. I'm not giving up my apartment. Not now, not ever." Dad's face flushed with anger. "That's it. You're out of the will. Everything will go to Amy, my real daughter, the one who understands family loyalty." I couldn't help but laugh at the absurdity, the sound echoing around the room as they all stared at me like I had lost my senses. "Your real daughter?" I rummaged through my purse. "That's intriguing, Dad, because there's something you need to see." I handed him an envelope, which he snatched, glaring at me as he pulled out the documents. "Read it," I said quietly. "Read it out loud." He began reading, initially with confidence, DNA relationship testing report. But as he reached the pivotal line, the color left his face, and the paper shook in his hands. Sharon made a noise as if she'd been physically struck. "This is a lie," she screamed, her face distorted in panic. "She forged these documents, trying to turn you against me, against us." "I have more proof," I said softly, taking out my phone while Sharon continued ranting about forgery. My hands trembled slightly as I opened the photos Jack had taken.
"Look."
The room went silent as I held up the screen, revealing Sharon locked in a passionate embrace with Robert Mitchell. The timestamp indicated it was from just last week. Sharon collapsed onto the couch, her facade of superiority finally broken. "David, please, I can explain." "Explain," he thundered, causing us all to jump. "Explain what? How long?" 20 years, she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "He's my colleague at Riverside Insurance. Amy, Robert is her father." The silence that followed was overwhelming as I watched my father's world crumble, decades of deception crashing down around him. Without another word, I picked up my purse and left, leaving them to their reckoning. The next week rushed by in a haze. I went to work, returned home, attempting to process everything that transpired. I heard through the grapevine that Sharon and Amy had moved out, that Dad had employed the city's top divorce attorney, and the scandal had spread like wildfire through their social circle. When Dad's number appeared on my phone a week later, I almost didn't answer, but something, curiosity, perhaps hope, compelled me to pick up. "Can we meet?" His voice sounded rough, weary. "Coffee at Carson's Cafe?" I found him at a corner table, staring into a cold cup of coffee. He seemed to have aged a decade in a week, unshaven, shoulders slumped, wedding ring notably absent. "I filed for divorce," he stated without any preamble. "Sharon and Amy are gone. I told them to leave my house. I've stopped paying for Amy's college as well. Why should I support another man's child?" I sat quietly, stirring my latte, waiting. "Julie, his voice broke. "I've been a terrible father to you." "Yes," I agreed calmly, "you have. For all these years, I favored Amy. I'd allowed Sharon to make you feel like an outsider in your own home. I didn't defend you, didn't support you. I failed you." "You did," I said. "And you wouldn't have realized it if not for finding out about Amy. If she had been your biological daughter, nothing would have changed. You would have taken my apartment and given it to her without hesitation." He flinched at my words, but did not deny them. "Please," he whispered, reaching across the table. I withdrew my hand before he could touch it. "Please, just give me a chance to make it right. Let me try to be the father you deserved all these years." That was 3 months ago. We meet occasionally for coffee, lunch, cautious conversations about safe subjects. He's trying to make up for lost time, sharing stories about mom he never told before, asking about my work, my friends, my life. But as for full forgiveness, I'm not there yet. Maybe I never will be. Decades of being overlooked and neglected leave scars that won't heal overnight, if they ever heal at all. As for Sharon and Amy, I hear things occasionally through the grapevine. They've moved in with Robert Mitchell, I think, living a life they had secretly planned all along, but honestly, I don't really care. They're part of a chapter in my life that's now closed.